So once they finish with their program, and how long is their program with us? I don't know. We had thought it would take a year. These dogs were actually going to start probably in the next 2 weeks training 3 of our dogs on cancer samples. And we're going to probably start with another dog doing the explosive detection work. All of them are ready for search and rescue. You know, can they go out and pass the first test? Not yet, because we just built all of their really crazy agility equipment last week. So now we've got to get them through some of that, but they will be ready to move on. So they're going to be able to kind of move into their working careers sooner than they might otherwise. But we don't want them to go before their bones are finished growing and they're mentally mature. Yeah.
The other picture of the dog, Steve, that looks like a jump, reminding me. There's been, with more people, more media coverage of the military working dogs, I've noticed there's been some pushback from some of the public who feel like there are animal welfare concerns. Have you guys experienced
I think it's a great conversation to have. One of the things, and one of our emphasis on positive training is a really important part of it. We don't use electric collars. We don't use aversive training. We don't use choke chains. We don't use, you know, all of the things that are oftentimes associated with sort of that animal welfare. So we're very positive oriented, and the dogs love what they do. And if people would go out and actually meet these military working dogs, these dogs, all they want to do is work. So it's an education process. We have been embraced pretty much by everybody. Initially, we had some kickback because we have been talking about having a breeding program, and we will have a breeding program. And that is an important question. But if you look at the side of taking shelter dogs and putting them into this kind of work, first of all, we have data. We know what the success rate is, and it's 1 in 1,000. So you can take 1,000 shelter dogs and screen them. You can, of those, pick 100 and put them in a training program, and only 10 are going to be, actually you're going to probably end up screening 10,000 to get your 100. But only, it's 1 in 1,000 can actually go on and do the work. And you've got the health issues, the behavioral issues. And we really feel that there's a need to get the good genetics out there and be breeding dogs for this purpose. These are not going to be great pet dogs. But if we can, there's so many jobs for these dogs. There's no shortage of jobs. I mean, every week in the news, I see another detection dog story about whether they're finding whale scat or they're, doing other crazy stuff. But detection dogs, there's a huge demand for them. And so to have the dogs that have that capacity is really important. So 2 of our dogs, our females, are going to be our breeding females. The first 2, they're going to work with our local police department at the university, which is great because they can work and then come back in and be bred. Yeah.
I was actually going to ask about that. The males are neutered with the idea that you'll eventually use them in breeding.
We are going to collect semen and freeze it. We are going to have the world's biggest, detection dog semen bank. And we're hoping actually to become like a national semen bank for detection dogs. So that's they don't freeze very well, but again, that's if anyone's interested in, theriogenology reproduction and wants to help advance that field forward. So our challenge is the males, we can have all of their semen, we can have semen and store that, and that's easy. We will not neuter anybody until we know what the sort of the status is. If we have a dog like the dog that we did remove from the program, he had a ventricular arrhythmia that appears to be genetic in German Shepherds. If he would have stayed in the program, he would have been neutered. He has been placed with his foster family, and he's now a pet, and he's like really happy being a pet. So that's great. He's pretty mellow that way. Yeah. In our breeding program, there's no reason that I would not crossbreed. What we need to do is figure out what it is that we're looking for. It's like, I want a little bit of that Springer and a little bit of this Shepherd and a little bit of this Labrador, and I kind of imagine. But then you have to look at what it takes to get a consistent, breeding and a reproducible population. And you really do, the ideal thing is to end up with a detection dog breed. But then we have to think about, well, what are we really breeding for? Do we want this search and rescue dog that's just, balls to the walls and just going? Or do we want a cancer detection dog who's going to work in a laboratory and screen samples? Those are 2 different dogs, and it's great for us now because we have a spectrum. And I think when we have a litter too, they're not going to all be the high end. We're going to have a bell curve. So if we have that opportunity, but we can start selecting, these are the dogs that are going to be the diabetic alert dogs, the cancer detection dogs. These are the dogs that are going to be, going out and jumping out of airplanes and, doing other crazy stuff.